There we go.
Yeah. I'm just reading the latest book that's making white people cry. It's terrible.
I've got a few things to say about that.
Really? You have something to say about this?
Yes,
Um,
that was 70 years ago or so,
no,
or
I
60 or 50 or however long ago that book was written.
what do we got here? No, I understand that.
Now,
1937.
my whole point is, well, I have a few things with Dr. Seuss. Number one, um, I don't think that an author from that time period should be held to the same standards as this
No, I don't
when it
think
comes
so
to
either.
something like that. He was not right. He was not doing that picture or writing that out of any sort of hatred for Asian people.
No, he wasn't.
I mean, his propaganda stuff in World War II, maybe, but I doubt that. I really wouldn't ever say that either, because, and this is going to be a very controversial statement for me, and probably going to get us in a little bit of trouble. But
You in a little
yes,
bit of trouble.
exactly. But it was a war, and who attacked who?
No, I know.
So, um, and that's as far as I'm going to take it, because, yeah, culturally, there's been a lot of water under the bridge and everything since then, and a whole revamp of what got us to that, of what got to that point. And not my culture, so I'm not going to go into all that. But the thing is understanding it from then.
Well, yes. No,
I understand. I understand the point of view with some people who say that this is not something that we should be teaching anymore. But I believe that this is a perfect example of when to teach, of why
Yes.
we don't think in these terms anymore, and why we don't do these types of stereotypes anymore, and where we are now from where we were then. Which is something people do not dwell on these days. People dwell on how awful America is and how awful everybody is these days, and how terribly racist everyone is, and as if nothing has changed in the last 100 years in this country.
I was looking for an American flag or some sort of prop that I could have waved while you did that.
Yeah, well, no, I'm not going to be doing any flag waving either, because there's plenty wrong with this country. Which that'll end up taking off the other side if we actually go into what I feel about thinking about who you elect. But
yeah, no, I know it was 1937, and I know Seuss wasn't being a raging anti, you say China person here.
in fact, if that's 1937, that is one heck of a good portrayal, because we were, I mean, I would say next to blacks, the Chinese got it worse or as bad at that particular time in history, as how they were portrayed.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I haven't looked at this book since about 1996. Actually, this is Madeline's copy. My copy's in storage. It's the bigger one.
Okay.
And I heard the news story on the news, and I was just kind of like, I can see how there'll probably be stuff in there. I didn't remember it, and then I flipped. Since this was one of the ones that mentioned, I looked through it. Where's there? It's like, wow. Okay, yeah, I can see how that's not that doesn't fly here in 21st century, and how it really hasn't flown for a few decades. So I can understand why that would be something that would be. I don't really know if we should be doing this anymore, but I'm not going to raise a big stink about they stopped publishing it. What's wrong with them? The book was put out in 1937. There's 100 gajillion copies of this thing in existence, floating throughout the planet. It's not like it's been vaporized, like it never existed. So the people crying about it, oh, you're erasing history. There's 100 trillion copies of that book out there. They're not erasing history. It's right there. You can find it anywhere. It's there are 2 copies within this household at least. So They're not hard to find. They're not erasing history. It's just,
Exactly.
yeah.
And my other take on it, though, is um, now I don't like not publishing an author. I don't like censoring an author.
Mhm.
But then again, I think Dr. Seuss is looked more at as a nostalgia thing from adults.
Yes.
I, as a kid, cannot remember sitting down and even reading something like Green Eggs and Ham
No, I can't.
on my own.
No, I can't.
You can.
I read a lot of this when I was a kid. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't. I remember it being read to us in the class. I remember me thinking stuff like that, and even in first and second grade was babyish. But then maybe that's just me in some cases.
That's how you became the bitter, jaded adult that you are now.
Well, yeah. Well, let's just say that in 1984, I was 12 years old,
Yeah.
and I think I was fifth or sixth grade. I figured that was a good time to pick up George Orwell's 1984, give it a good read.
And there you go.
So, and so that kind of tells you where my reading was as a kid, somewhat. Plus, I liked science books a lot more than I liked Dr. Seuss. But I kind of think Dr. Seuss is something that a lot of adults grew up with and that they're nostalgic for. I don't know if, except for a lot of the good stuff in there that kind of teaches some good moral values and everything. I don't see if it's as relevant for kids these days as it used to be. Because I think there's a lot more modern books that say the same things that speak more to kids these days as well. That would connect with them, because in some ways, reading a Dr. Seuss book is like reading James Thurber's Walter Mitty. I mean, if you're a literary student, if you're student literature and everything, yeah, it's funny. You get it. If you watch old movies and understand a little bit of the 30s, you get it.
Yeah.
You read it as just a regular person who's been handed it handed to you by your teacher. You're sitting there going, why is this supposed to be funny?
Well, there's a lot of fantasy in Dr. Seuss, much like Xanadu. Try and finally bring this back around to comments about the 2000 version of Xanadu.
Okay. Well, I also have some comments on some other stuff after we get through Xanadu here, but it's more E.L.O. related.
Okay, good.
Ken Buzzard says, this is without question one of my two favorite versions of this song.
Mike Hudson. I like both versions, but honestly prefer the soundtrack version. I would like to hear that version with Jeff's lead vocal in place of Olivia's. I like it with the strings and the whizzits better than the more stripped down remake. But it is interesting to hear a different slant on the song. This is how Jeff should have remade all the songs on the Mr. Blue Sky album instead of the way he did it. Yeah, I would say that this version of Xanadu has much more life to it than anything on the Mr. Blue Sky album, where he remade all the E.L.O. songs. Oh, and good news from Corey, who has a reliable source on this. One of the 50th anniversary E.L.O. special dealy bobs that's going to come out is an expanded version of the Mr. Blue Sky album, where Jeff took all of his great songs and made hollow remakes of that. Can you run that damn car some other street?
Sorry.
Yeah, especially
just doing it for you.
trying to nap before going to work because you work at night. Anyway, when Sensei put the next comment.
Well, yeah, you're getting into some of what I wanted to discuss a little bit ELOE coming up too. Trevor Raggett says, so glad you gave this one its own feature because it's really great. I know which one is my fave, but I suspect that this version shades it because of its down to earth, nuts and bolts approach. The upfront, big strummy acoustic guitar is such a Jeff signature. In fact, I'd argue that in the feel, he brought a little bit of E.L.O. to the Wilburys rather than vice versa. And the additional electric guitar lines are just exquisite. It's so great that Jeff brought it back into the live set list for the last tour. The Wembley or Bus live recording really blends the best elements of both versions to create the ultimate arrangement. Oh, and a word for Troy. A reworking of Coleridge's poem doesn't take you to Alan Parsons territory. It takes you straight to Rush City, Ontario. That's the iconic retelling. Heck, you get to Frankie Goes to Hollywood way before you get to Alan Parsons. Just saying, Doc.
By the way,
yes, Rush did a song called Xanadu where basically a lot of the poem is recounted in that.
By the way, I don't know which one is my fave. You dropped the don't in that one when you read his comment. I didn't even know there was a Rush version of Xanadu until I had to look up art for the episode of Xanadu, the 1980 version. So, but I don't really know much about Rush except for what was played on the radio.
Yeah, this one was not. It's about 10 minutes long.
Yeah,
and it's based on the poem, except it's also kind of like an adventure story of a man who goes in search of immortality and finds it, but then finds that he is locked within the ancient pleasure dome of Kubla Khan as a price for that immortality, so that he can never leave with any of the treasures or anything that he finds therein.
That's deep, man.
That's Rush.
Yeah. Corey Gomel. I love Haven't We Been Here Before? Oh, that was the, I don't know, sort of tagline that I had for this episode because Jeff Lynne had done this.
And that's also a Styx song.
Haven't We Been Here Before is a Styx song. Yes. From the
Kilroy Was Here.
I'm trying to think of
It's one of the few good songs off of Kilroy Was Here.
See, that was my head locked up. From the laughable? Well, no, they're actually
laughable. Laughable is a great word for it.
There were actually a couple of good songs on that album that weren't laughable, so it's kind of a mix of laughable and, well, actually some of it wasn't so bad. Although I do like the album for its absurdity and the 1983 flashback it gives. But yeah, we'll cover that on our Styx podcast. There seems to be something missing here. I think it's Red Bull. Especially when he sings the word Xanadu. It just seems to fall off the table. The music is fine. I do like the 80s music a little better, but it's Jeff's energy that seems a little off. It's a damn good song, hard to screw up, but I'd love to hear one of his alt takes, if he had any. There were plenty of misguided critics that said Jeff's vocals were robotic during Xanadu and Time. They were wrong then. But on this recording, I think Jeff wanted to show those critics just what his voice would sound like, devoid of emotion. It's one of those problems when you are the producer and artist. Jeff thought Jeff's energy level was fine here. Jeff has a lot more energy in Zoom. But it's got a good beat and easy to dance to. I'll give it a 75. So he brings in Barry Manilow in there too. I don't know. I thought Jeff's energy was, comparing the energy level of Xanadu to what he did on Mr. Blue Sky, I'd say the energy level on this Xanadu remake is much more than Mr. Blue Sky, which just kind of felt like, all right, well, let's do this.
Okay, and then MJ Fold says, I forgot I did the bop, 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 bop before singing Xanadu. It was an afterthought that I am glad I did. On to the song, and I love this version. Actually, it could have been the first version of Xanadu I heard. I do not recall hearing it played on the radio when I was younger. The greatest hits collection that my parents had that got me into ELO did not have it on. They had All Over the World, Don't Walk Away, and I'm Alive but on it, but not Xanadu. So yeah, I really like this new version. I like the way it crunched along. Jeff's harmonies with himself are always a joy, and some splendid guitar work. And I remember at the time a magazine, probably Q magazine, reviewing the box set and saying about the remake that Jeff sounded lifeless. Maybe he doesn't give it the intense high vocal energy that Olivia gave it, with which E.L.O. matched equally frantic backing vocals, but I would not call it lifeless. I love the relaxed way he sings it with his lovely harmonies. Screw you, Q. Sorry, I think we should just take that out of context and just use it. And the horse you rode in on. Oh yeah, we need to include that part too.
Yeah.
No, EPJ, not that Q. Let's leave Trek out of this. That wasn't the Q I was thinking either.
Would you like that cue to remain anonymous?
Anonymous and Q, I hope are not the same person.
Oh, that's right.
Great
James
production,
Bond.
which he always did back then.
Mm-hmm.
I miss how he used to do it. Great episode.
Oh, it was more. Okay, I didn't know that.
Yep, there was more to that.
Okay. Yeah, I liked your bop 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 bop. That actually made me giggle a little bit, and it made that better instead of just you singing Xanadu. So that was a nice touch. Damian Griffin. Considering Xanadu was E.L.O.'s only real #1 song, I'm not surprised Jeff covered it. He put covered in quotes. I really like it, and yeah, although the original was overplayed, I actually like this version better. It's an E.L.O. song, always has been and always will be, and it's nice to hear the purity of E.L.O. all the way through it. It was #1 in England and a few other countries too. I think it got to #8. I'm pretty sure it got to #8 here in America. So,
yeah,
and America is the only place that matters. So,
yep.
Yeah.
Especially if we're talking about the purity of E.L.O. Oh.
Yeah.
I don't think that's how he meant it.
Probably not.
Jeffrey Eberting says.
Wait. Go down and
okay.
Aaron Jansen.
No, not unless you buy me dinner first.
Aaron Jansen is the next one. That comment came in like last second. I had to reorganize things, but from there on, from what I sent you, should be the right order. So
okay, so Aaron Jansen says, funny enough, when I was a teenager and getting into Rush before hearing the track, I thought Rush had covered E.L.O. Nope, not in the slightest. Was I ever disappointed? Don't get me wrong, Rush's Xanadu isn't a bad song. I just wanted to hear Geddy Lee tackle those vocals.
I would. Oh, we can't though. That's right. The drummer's dead. Still, though, I would like to hear Rush cover E.L.O.'s Xanadu. I think that would be interesting.
I wouldn't put it past Geddy actually doing that at some point.
Yeah.
As a joke.
Oh,
they have enough humor, believe it or not, as seriously as their stuff, as seriously as they take their music, they've got enough humor that I'm sure him and Alex Lifeson would do that at some point, just annoy the Rush fans too.
I don't doubt it, because I mean, $10 is $10, and when you can get $10 from Bob and Doug to sing the chorus from their song, Rush can't be all serious, or at least Geddy Lee anyway.
Exactly. That was $10 Canadian.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So this isn't a comment on Xanadu. This is a more of a review of the podcast that Jeff Eberting wrote. By the way, he might be doing some segments we just found this out this morning. Maybe. We'll see what happens. He writes, I've just recently discovered Face the Music, the E.L.O. Song by Song podcast, and started listening from the beginning. Well, thank you for suffering through the first 3 albums of our episodes. The distortion on our voices.
Yeah.
Currently at Midnight Blue, By the way, now he's up to Time After Time. What are people's thoughts about this podcast? My son and I have enjoyed it a lot. Well, there you go. We've become the gorilla glue for a father and son bonding something over. It's our podcast. We're bringing people back into ELO who might have strayed, and we're bringing families together.
Yes, we are.
I need some awe music to drop in here, but
Yeah, we do.
can you make any awe music with a bass?
Uh,
I don't know.
as in, oh, he's trying to play bass.
I know it's adorable. Maybe someday after having that guitar.
I'll go grab the guitar back there and and yeah, and I'll be no.
Maybe someday after having that bass since 1984, he'll actually be able to play it better, or competently anyway.
No, the main problem with grabbing any musical instruments is when the dust flies up and you start coughing.
Yeah,
So.
found that out recently. I started. I thought I'm going to give do this recording thing that I've been wanting to get to, and I picked up my acoustic guitars and played and recorded one of my old songs, and to have a go at it. And it's obvious I haven't played the guitar in a long time, so I'm gonna have to do some more practicing if I'm gonna make some music and hope for the best.
Mark Dodsworth says, I enjoy them.
See?
Which I think is referring to us.
Yeah.
Obviously, you enjoy E.L.O. because you wouldn't be listening to this if you didn't.
Yeah. No, he enjoys the podcast, and that's great.
Yes.
I love that. Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay.
Because I think, I don't know if we bring enough to the proceedings for people just to love it. For that, but
it's weird. I've listened to the first couple episodes sometimes, and it's kind of weird to hear. I know that I knew that wasn't going to be how it was going to be for the rest of the series, because things change, evolve, like comic strips. You see the early bloom counties, and they kind of hurt your eyes, but a year or two later, a few years later, it's just beautiful art. And the same with Peanuts, how it evolved, and how my comic strips, my cartoon characters would frighten children and adults, but I did it more and more, and the drawing got so much better.
Yep.
So
yeah, our first episodes kind of sound like the first album of E.L.O.
there's the distortion. It's so empty. It's just us. There's no Don or Troy. There's no Lisa, Madeline at the end, and the Karen at the end with the credits voice. And it's just, we talk about the song. Madeline gives her opinion. End of episode. So, and and there was no George with his great lines segment. So, it sounds so empty, like it's just me and you, which what it was, and it didn't have all these extra fillers and fluff and other enjoyable bits.
Yeah, me figuring out over the next few weeks why in the world I'm distorting so much, and
part of that was my fault.
Yeah, part of that was getting used to Windows 10.
Yeah.
And the fact that adjusting sound on Windows 10 is not like adjusting sound on Windows 7 or Windows. Well, I had an older version of Windows than 7 originally, but
I love Macs. I love my Mac. Well, I love my Macs. Got a couple of them here. Still have one from 10 years ago that's still working.
Return of the Mac.
Yeah.
But anyway, one of the things I did want to mention was what Corey Gomel had brought up, and was number one, we're going by what he said, and I don't know the accuracy whatsoever. At first, I thought he was just coming up with wishful thinking, but I don't think anybody would wishful think for bonus material for Mr. Blue Sky.
Yeah.
what is there to expand to a double album for Time? We've heard some stuff on the box sets that was kind of between Time and Secret Messages, but more of that would have gone probably towards Secret Messages.
My guess is the B sides are going to be worked into it. Um, so
But
like
there still
Julie,
there's not a whole lot of
well,
B-sides.
see, I mean, that's my thinking too. There was only three when time stood still. Julie, don't live here anymore, and the bouncer. Um, unless there's something that I'm forgetting or missing. So we'll see what happens.
And only two of those kind of fit into the story.
I don't know. I thought the bouncer fit in. I thought the bouncer fit in there perfectly. I mean, lyrically, it's all
Oh,
about that he's stuck there and he's telling his girl that about what he saw, and she's kind of like, "Mm-hmm, that was a nice dream."
yeah, now
And
go get me coffee.
yeah,
But well, yeah, you're right.
mm.
But that's more of an album and a half.
Yeah, yeah,
It's what about basically barely even a half. So that's why I don't know if there's some material that just never we've never heard before that's been sitting
mhm,
around. And if so, after two box sets,
I know.
how bad is it that we've never heard it?
Here's
Uh,
my pipe dream, and I don't. Well, I'm sure it can be done. Um, that he takes time, and if he's going to expand it, do a 5.1 surround sound mix of it,
oh,
because
hell yes.
time would be just the prologue in surround sound would be awesome. So I mean that whole album is perfect for surround sound. So that's what you got to
Yeah.
do, Jeff, if you're watching this, and I'm sure you are, just sitting around eagerly anticipating when each one of these post.
Yep. Now, new material, um, especially if done with the band,
Oh yeah,
the live band, that would be most welcome.
that would be great. Please, I hope
Yes.
to God you use the band, Jeff.
Yeah. For a 50-year anniversary, I'm sure that we probably are going to get some new material of some sort, even if it's just even if it's just a single or an EP.
And
We're probably
the
going to get something.
yeah, and the dreamy-eyed fantasy would be that Jeff does it with, you know,
His band.
yeah, no, not the band, the old band. Even though he seems to be on the outs with all of them except for Roy and Richard Tandy. Um, but I don't really know if I can see Jeff and Roy working together. They're both way too headstrong about what they want, and what they want is has never been on the same page.
True.
Yeah,
Yeah, and yeah, from what I understand about Wizard's actual album output, yeah, it is about as far from ELO as you can get, and
yeah,
about as far from Jeff Lynne production values
yeah,
as you can get.
yeah. So
So
we'll see. Maybe a concert. Maybe a bit of a reunion spot, like they one song, all of them, Jeff and Roy and Bevan, and they all come out. And everybody's, oh, it's wonderful. Of course, that'll never happen. But
yeah, no, I don't think Roy's going to have anything to do with it whatsoever.
yeah,
Tandy maybe if he's okay, if he's feeling okay enough.
yeah,
Um, Bevan, no, I don't. I'm not expecting anything from any of from most of the original members. I'm just hoping if there's new material, it's with his
yeah,
current band he has now for the tours. Um,
yeah.
and then hopefully towards the end of the year, if he wants to do another live, I know I'm sure there's not going to be a time for any live tour or anything, but if he wants to do one big show once everybody's, well, most people have got their vaccinations
Hmm.
and it's halfway safe to do so.
Yeah, yeah. Which is why I said it's a dreamy-eyed fantasy that the old band gets back together of those
Yeah.
that are still alive to do that.
But then that gives us more stuff to review.
It does. I'm kind of I don't know how I feel about that. It's like I like doing the podcast, but there's a part of me that's kind of like, I'm kind of looking forward to when we finish this and I can get more than just like a week or two off and just kind of lay back for a bit. Because,
True. We'll get there.
yeah, I think at this point, as far as me and you doing the show, I think we got about a year left. Although the last episode is scheduled in June 2022. Unless there's more new E.L.O. Then it goes online.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's all I got. Was that all you had?
That's all I got. That's all I've got is because I figured we should bring that up since it's kind of on the table now, but we'll
Yeah,
know
it is.
more when it happens.
Yeah. But, with everything in the record industry, things can change before they finally come out.
Exactly.
All right. I guess that's
Okay.
it.
Thank you for sticking with us this entire time, and have a good week.
Yeah, I'm going to read Dr. Seuss and play with my noisemaker and just.
That's worse than anything in the Dr. Seuss book ever.
Yeah. All right. We're out.